Unexpected genius: how a cleaning lady's secret notes transformed a millionaire's life forever. Every day, Sarah navigated the labyrinth of glass-clad giants, mop in hand and dreams heavy in her heart. At 32, she felt the weight of the city on her shoulders, the pulse of ambition vibrating just above layers of despair. As she pushed her mop, she found a rhythm in the motions, a soothing balm against the chaos of her reality, but her brilliance felt like a secret locked away in the corners of her mind. Ideas danced tantalizingly around her: a marketing flair, a tech product twist, a unique approach to engagement, but they slipped further away each time she dusted, struggling to escape the confines of her cleaning cart. The irony was palpable: a cleaning lady with aspirations soaring beyond the towers housing the elite, yet the world saw her as just another cog in a crumbling machine. What would happen if she laid out her thoughts? Would anyone even care? With every polished floor, the answer weighed heavier. Could she risk sharing the contents of her jotted notes, scribbled on the backs of her cleaning schedules? Or would she remain imprisoned by her status, forever missing the chance to breathe life into her visions? One fateful afternoon, Sarah found herself in the office of Jonathan Cross, a tech mogul who had once been the toast of Silicon Valley but was now grappling with a fading legacy. Jonathan, surrounded by sleek furniture and illuminated screens, epitomized success yet appeared withered under the burden of his empire. As Sarah cleaned, she couldn't escape the stark contrast of their worlds: he in his tailored suit and she in her worn sneakers. But, as their paths unexpectedly crossed, an intimate hunger for something more ignited within her, matched only by the dim flicker of hope in the recesses of Jonathan's jaded heart. As she carefully stacked his papers, Sarah's notes fell from the cart, sprawling onto the polished desk. Unbeknownst to her, Jonathan would later pick them up, perplexed at this glimpse of brilliance from someone society deemed beneath him. Yet, even as he read her innovative marketing strategies, he could hear echoes of doubt nudging at the edges of his thoughts. Could he really allow a cleaning lady to save him? But as days dragged on and profits dwindled, desperation mounted. For Sarah, this was a pivotal moral dilemma: did she leverage her creativity in the shadows, tipping the scales of social hierarchy, or did she remain silent, a phantom voice in corporate obscurity? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Both were locked in a dance of fear and hope. Jonathan hesitated to approach Sarah, wrestling with the ingrained biases that screamed he shouldn't need her help, while Sarah felt the sting of inner turmoil as whispers of self-doubt crawled up her spine. Who was she to think she could help revive a fading empire? Time passed, their after-hours meetings became a flickering flame of collaboration and conflict. But Jonathan's peers grew suspicious of this partnership, their envy igniting rumors that clawed at Sarah's already fragile confidence. She could feel the weight of their condescension, their sneered doubt suffocating her. Could she really break through the glass ceiling imposed not only by others but by her own insecurities? The stakes continued to heighten as sabotage tore at the seams of their burgeoning alliance. Amidst whispered doubts, Jonathan discovered a dark secret buried deep within the company, a revelation with the potential to shatter everything. As they faced the impending storm, would they find a way to navigate this web of treachery and uncertainty, or would they be ensnared by the very chains they'd hoped to break? The clock ticked ominously on, the air thick with tension as their fates converged, bringing both peril and the promise of transformation. The air crackled with intensity the following week. Sarah had spent countless hours refining her marketing ideas, each proposal a piece of her heart laid bare before Jonathan. It was exhilarating but terrifying. Shadows of self-doubt crept in, whispering insidiously that perhaps her ideas weren't worthy of such a coveted attention. In the pit of her stomach, she felt the weight of expectation, the expectations not just of Jonathan and his faltering empire, but her own longing to carve out her destiny against all odds. Jonathan, too, was engulfed in the tumult. His search for answers about the company's hidden secrets had drawn him deeper into a vortex of uncertainty. The more he unearthed, the more he recognized the risk of bringing Sarah into the very core of his world. Could her outsider perspective truly bridge the chasm gnawing at his company's foundation, or would it expose his failures even further? A sense of urgency pushed him to rely on her, but it conflicted starkly with the whispering voices that warned against blurring social lines. "Let's focus on the upcoming product launch," Jonathan said one evening as they sat in his office. He was meticulous so as not to reveal the growing desperation he felt. "Your ideas for customer engagement have merit. We need something bold." His eyes locked onto hers, searching for clarity, yet a storm brewed behind them, a conflict between his instincts to reach out and the conditioning that kept him from trusting someone from a different world. The room was thick with tension as Sarah kept her gaze steady. "Boldness comes with risks, Jonathan. But if we don't take risks, we won't innovate." Her words hung heavy in the air, challenging him to confront his fears. The thrill of collaboration was intoxicating, yet it brought with it the stark realization that they might be stepping into uncharted waters where the depths of betrayal could pull them under at any moment. The stakes escalated as they developed a plan, with Sarah's notes illuminating their path forward. But the whispers outside their office ramped up, each rumor bringing with it a new wave of doubt. Colleagues began questioning Jonathan's judgment, undermining his authority by suggesting that he was grasping at straws, that a cleaning lady could never possibly grasp the nuances of his sector. Frustrated, Sarah decided to engage directly with some of his peers, seeking to bypass the silent condescension. "I want to show you my ideas," she proposed to a group of analysts during a break. She kept her tone confident, a stark contrast to the tempest inside her. As they listened, her voice blazed with passion, and their initial skepticism started to falter. But for every moment of connection she crafted, there existed an echoing chamber of doubt. Could they see her for who she was, or would they always view her through the lens of her title? Discontent simmered as Jonathan remained on the sidelines, battling his fear of losing control over his legacy, while Sarah grew frustrated with the unseen barriers that persisted. Then, a pivotal moment arrived when they stumbled upon a hidden email thread that would blow the lid off everything, the secret dealings that could jeopardize both their ambitions and the trust they'd begun to foster in one another. The gravity of the discovery slammed into both of them like a freight train, awakening a primal survival instinct. Would they leverage this explosive information to break free from the chain holding them back, or would it further complicate their entangled fates? As they confronted this shocking reality, the threads of their alliance, once precarious, now dangled dangerously. Each decision could propel them forward or plunge them into uncharted chaos. Who would emerge intact as the stakes surged higher? The shadowy trajectory of their futures loomed ahead, heavy with anticipation, each tick of the clock a reminder that the time for significant choices was upon them. Would they seize the moment, or let it slip away into the abyss? The discovery of the email thread hung heavily in the air like a storm cloud, a tangible reminder that the world of business was as treacherous as it was exhilarating. Sarah and Jonathan sat in silence, the realization of what they'd found swirling around them. What once felt like a partnership teetering on the precipice now emerged as a battlefield for survival. Jonathan's fingers tapped nervously against the desk, his mind racing as he pondered their next move. He was aware that they stood on a knife's edge and that one misstep could obliterate every ounce of trust they had begun to cultivate. In that moment of shared fear, Sarah felt a sudden surge of determination. This wasn't just about the company anymore, it was about her own self-worth. She could feel the words bubbling in her throat, unformed ideas desperate to surface. "We need to take this to the board before they find out on their own," she stated, her voice steady as she met Jonathan's apprehensive gaze. He frowned, visibly torn. "What if they see this as an attack? What if it costs us everything?" The trembling worry in his voice did little to anchor Sarah. Instead, it propelled her forward. "We have evidence. If they react poorly, we have the upper hand. We can lead with transparency rather than suspicion. But we need to act quickly." Her heart raced, and her breath quickened. The weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders, yet the thrill of seizing control was intoxicating. Jonathan stared at her, wrestling with his instincts and the depth of her conviction. All of Sarah's late nights spent developing proposals were building to this moment. This was her chance to prove that her voice mattered, that she could influence outcomes beyond the confines of the company's expectations. "You really believe we can change the tide?" he asked, his eyes glimmering with uncertainty. "I know we can," Sarah replied, her words a beacon of courage. The self-doubt that once plagued her was now a distant whisper, muffled by the clarity of purpose she cradled. She could feel the chains of her previous identities shattering. The cleaning lady in her might have been timid, but this woman sitting before Jonathan was forged anew, a leader ready to take on the world. The decision was made. They would present the email's contents to the board, framing it as an opportunity for accountability rather than an act of insurrection. As they hashed out their approach, every detail mattered. Sarah sketched out a presentation, her markers dancing across the whiteboard. Each point was more than just a proposal, it was an expression of her growth, a declaration that her insights were as worthy as anyone else's. As they prepared to confront the board, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the cusp of something monumental. The fear of being seen as an outsider had been replaced by the thrill of possibility. But as Jonathan's hand brushed against hers in an unexpected gesture of solidarity, the reality of their situation crashed over her. Was this alliance strong enough to withstand the inevitable firestorm of confrontation? With the presentation looming, the office felt eerily silent. Each second stretched on, laden with anticipation and uncertainty. The visceral tension was almost overwhelming. Moments like this defined careers, altered trajectories, and cemented reputations. Would they succeed and transform their company into something innovative and powerful, or would they ignite a reckoning that tore them apart? In that charged atmosphere, Sarah realized she had crossed a threshold into a realm where there was no turning back. But the stakes kept climbing. As they stepped toward the conference room, their first audience awaited. It wasn't just the board, it was the embodiment of all her doubts and fears, the judgment she had fought so hard to dispel. As they pushed open the door, Sarah felt the pulse of that moment echoing throughout her. The intensity surged, her determination trembling with an undercurrent of anxiety. She was about to face the scrutiny she had so often feared, but this time she wouldn't be sidestepping it, she would confront it head-on. What revelations awaited in that room could either solidify her position or doom them both. The door had swung open, but the future that lay on the other side remained shrouded in uncertainty. Would courage triumph over fear, or had they ventured too far down a path that led to devastation? The moment of truth was upon them. Stepping into the conference room, Sarah's breath hitched. The long, polished table stretched before her, a stark reminder of the power dynamics at play. The board members were already seated, their eyes darting between her and Jonathan, the tension almost palpable. This was not merely a presentation, this was a trial by fire. Her mind raced as Jonathan launched into his opening remarks. Each word he uttered fueled her anticipation, but also her unease. He spoke of transparency and accountability, concepts that seemed innocuous yet held the potential to upend their reality. With every passing second, Sarah could feel the weight of expectation pressing on her decision to confront the board. What was she truly prepared to reveal? When it was finally her turn to speak, the room felt electric. She cleared her throat, feeling the collective gaze of her colleagues bore into her. This was a moment she had envisioned countless times, a moment where she could demonstrate that her voice mattered. Thank you all for being here today. We have uncovered critical information regarding potential governance issues that deserve immediate attention, she began, her steady voice cutting through the silence like a knife. As she introduced the email thread, a ripple of discomfort swept through the room. Faces hardened, brows furrowed, and a sense of disbelief hung in the air. Every word she had meticulously prepared unspooled, transforming into raw emotion fueled by years of being underestimated. It felt exhilarating. Yet as she elaborated on the implications, doubts began to creep in. Was this the right move? She glanced at Jonathan, whose confident nod offered reassurance. The synergy they had crafted in that office now seemed to shimmer across the divide between them and their audience. Yet, with each slide, she could see the board members' faces morph from surprise to skepticism. Would they embrace this revelation or push back? Summoning the forces of doubt, questions started flowing. Some members asked about the accuracy of her claims, while others pointedly questioned her authority to speak on such matters. In that moment of scrutiny, Sarah recalled the many times she had felt invisible, standing quietly by as conversations unfolded and decisions were made without her input. But she had come too far to retreat now. I understand your concerns, she replied, her heart pounding but her voice unwavering. However, it is precisely because I am not entrenched in this environment that I can bring a fresh perspective, one that signals a dire need for change. We cannot afford complacency. The risks are too significant. The words hung in the air, waiting to resonate. As the tension escalated, she felt the thrill of rising stakes. It was exhilarating and terrifying. This confrontation was transforming her not just externally, in the eyes of the board, but internally, breaking down her past barriers. She was no longer just a voice in the background, she was asserting her value and capabilities in a space that once screamed elitism, but just as she began to feel a glimmer of possibility, the CEO, a formidable figure known for his unyielding demeanor, interjected. Are you suggesting, Sarah, that you, someone who has only recently begun to navigate this world, can identify our failures better than those who have been in this boardroom for decades? His tone was sharp, a blade glistening under the harsh fluorescence. Her pulse quickened at the direct challenge. This was the very sentiment she had dreaded. The gaze of her peers felt heavier, and for a fleeting moment, a pang of doubt threatened to undermine her resolve. She could appear foolish, an insightful servant, or an impudent upstart. Realizing the moment demanded not just a response but an affirmation of her growth, she steadied herself, her voice softer yet resolute. It's not about my experience, but rather about our collective future. If we remain blinded by tradition, we risk stagnation. My unique path has honed my ability to see the cracks where others see only the surface. As she spoke, she realized she had ignited something more profound than a mere argument. She was engaged in a larger battle for innovation, adaptability, and, ultimately, for her place in this world. The board appeared contemplative but not convinced, the tension unsolved. Still, she had crossed a threshold into new territory, a challenge to those who deemed her unworthy of a seat at the table. Now, more than ever, she felt the pull of her past and the promise of her future entwined. Would this attempt to assert her identity culminate in empowerment or ridicule? The path ahead was still tangled, and looming shadows lingered as she awaited their responses. In that charged ambience, Sarah knew that this confrontation would define her not just for this moment, but for whatever ever lay beyond the doors of that conference room. The stakes had shifted, and the resilience she forged was about to be tested anew. As the board deliberated, a single thought eclipsed her mind. If she was to face the storm ahead, her next move would need to be even bolder than the last. The room buzzed with murmurs as the board members eyed one another, uncertainty casting shadows over their expressions. Sarah remained impassive, grappling not only with the weight of their scrutiny but also with the awareness of her own growing conviction. As their gaze shifted from her to one another, she felt the tension solidify into a palpable force, an entity that demanded acknowledgement. The board's deliberations felt endless. She cited statistics and referenced industry trends, attempting to bolster her position. Yet, despite her efforts, the apprehension amongst the members seemed insurmountable. Unsure of her next move, she focused on the glare of the overhead lights. The harsh illumination resembled the spotlight she had longed for, yet now it felt like an interrogation. What more could she say to break through this wall of skepticism? Drawing a calming breath, she summoned memories of her early days at the company, the nights spent hunched over her laptop, thirsting for knowledge and striving for acceptance. The image of Jonathan's approving smile danced through her mind. He believed in her potential, and for the first time, she dared to believe in it herself. Critique can be a catalyst, she declared boldly, her words gaining momentum. What I propose isn't just a critique, it's an invitation to evolve. Are we not here because we all, in some capacity, desire improvement? This time, her voice resonated, buoyed by determination. The CEO's brow furrowed, skeptical still but intrigued. Improvements based on what? A teenager's analysis? Though she felt the sting of his ridicule, something within her shifted. She thought of all the strategies she had developed in quiet moments, often disregarded by those who had not delved into her mind. It was time to reveal her unfiltered insights. I may not have had the decades of experience behind me, but I've studied this organization through a different lens. A fresh perspective often brings clarity where routine invites stagnation. The board members shifted in their seats, their expressions a mixture of trepidation and curiosity. Sensing the moment slipping away, she pressed on. If nothing changes, nothing improves. This isn't about challenging your expertise, it's about enhancing it with new ideas. A tense silence followed her declaration. Would they perceive her as a threat or a potential ally? She sensed the anticipatory gasps ripple across the room. The atmosphere morphed, the distance between her and the board shrinking as she offered not just a critique, but also herself a willing participant in the company's evolution. Jonathan's voice broke through the stillness. Sarah has a point. It would be prudent to consider these issues, no matter who presents them. He shifted his weight, finally leveraging his influence as an ally. A glimmer of hope stirred inside her, igniting a determination to not only advocate for her ideas but to carve her niche within this corporate landscape. Could her personal development extend beyond the confines of this room? The board members shifted their weight, exchanging apprehensive glances. Sarah noted the deliberation might signal receptiveness, something unfamiliar, but intoxicating. Just as hesitation began to transform into contemplation, the CEO leaned forward, a propositional glint appearing in his eyes. Let us entertain your suggestions, Sarah. If these issues you've raised hold truth, we may need more than a discussion. Are you prepared to lead the task force that examines our governance model? His offer landed like a bombshell. Lead? Her stomach fluttered with uncertainty, yet there it was, a tantalizing opportunity. The moment solidified her role from mere proposer to active shaper of change. The stakes had never been higher. Sarah glanced at Jonathan, who wore a proud smile. He believed in her. She could feel the pulse of potential coursing through her veins. Would she rise to this occasion, or cower in the shadows of uncertainty? As the board's deliberation continued, a thought struck her. Leadership is not just about authority but about conviction, the courage to wield one's voice. Nervously excited, she pondered how this could reshape not just her career, but her very identity. Yet as they concluded their discussion, she felt a different shadow looming, one that encompassed her newfound responsibilities. What if she failed? What if the challenge exposed her inadequacies rather than highlighting her potential? These questions held the power to stifle her ambition. The next steps lay before her like a daunting path obscured by fog. Was she ready to navigate it? In the midst of this whirlwind, Sarah braced herself, knowing that her journey had only just begun, for the stakes were not only personal, they were entwined with the very future of the organization she had grown to care about fiercely. As the conversation circled around to logistics, one thought lingered vividly. If she accepted this new role, she was no longer just standing at the edge of the table, she was stepping into the center of the storm. Would she harness that power or find herself swept away? In the days that followed her unexpected role as the head of the task force, Sarah found herself oscillating between exhilaration and fear. She immersed herself in the intricacies of governance models, poring over old reports and analyzing trends that had shaped the industry. Every piece of data fueled a small flame of excitement within her. Yet, the weight of her newly acquired authority crested like an impending storm cloud, threatening to engulf her. Her mornings began early, coffee in hand, as she crafted her vision for the task force. She wanted to introduce a culture of vulnerability, where ideas could be tested without judgment. To foster this, she performed a mental checklist: define goals, assemble an enthusiastic team, communicate effectively. She needed to prove to the board that her unique perspective was not a fluke but a conduit for change. The first team meeting put her resolve to the test. Seated around a sleek conference table were seasoned executives, most of whom had attended business school decades ago. Their eyes held a mix of skepticism and curiosity. A knot twisted in her stomach, but she was determined not to let it show. "Thank you all for joining me," she began, injecting warmth into her voice. "I know I'm the newest kid on the block, but I believe fresh ideas can ignite new pathways for us. Our goal is to revitalize our governance model to better align with our company mission." She observed the board members' faces, searching for signs of engagement. It struck her that openness would be her best defense against their doubt. "I'd like to encourage everyone to share their experiences, good or bad, with our current structure. There are no bad ideas here," she added, hoping her sincerity would dismantle barriers. To her surprise, one by one, they began to voice their thoughts. Margaret, the head of compliance, expressed concerns about bureaucracy. Miles, the CFO, shared frustrations over inefficient processes that hindered team communication. Sarah quickly took notes, her heart racing as fresh ideas emerged like stars in a dark sky. As they concluded, Sarah felt a flicker of triumph. This was not just her task force, it belonged to all of them. They would shape it together, yet as the energy of the meeting settled into reflective silence, self-doubt clawed at her. She couldn't shake the looming specter of failure. What if they went down this path, only to regress into habitual patterns? Was she capable enough to guide this diverse group through uncharted waters? In search of clarity, she turned to Jonathan. His confidence in her had been a lifeline, and she sought that energy once again. She asked for a meeting, desperately wanting to share her vision and gather feedback. As they sat in a small, windowed office filled with bookshelves, she laid out her apprehensions. "I fear that without a true buy-in from the board, we could just be pivoting in circles," she confessed, frustration tinging her voice. He regarded her seriously. "Sarah, you've already achieved something many aspire to. You've sparked this conversation. That's a victory in itself. You've earned their respect. Now focus on initiating change and embrace the uncertainties that come with it. Every leader faces doubts." His words ignited a flicker of resilience deep within her. She began to shift her perspective. The unknown wasn't an enemy, it was a teacher. Her responsibility was not just to lead but to learn alongside her team. That evening, she crafted a new approach to the task force. Rather than a series of rigid meetings to dictate change, she envisioned a series of workshops, each designed to delve deeper into specific issues, inviting participation from all levels of the organization. Encouraging collective ownership of the process felt revolutionary. However, as she prepared to unveil this new plan, a nerve-wracking reality etched itself in her mind. What if her innovations flopped? With every step, Sarah felt the stakes rise, a potent reminder of the challenge ahead. She was poised at a critical juncture, a place where every decision would reveal her true mettle as a leader. As she entered the boardroom with her proposal, the potential for both achievement and failure hung in the air like a tension string, ready to snap. Would she stand firm or falter under the scrutiny of the board members once more? Sarah stepped into the sleek boardroom, her palms slightly clammy as she adjusted her notes. The tension in the room thickened with each step she took toward the polished conference table, where the board members awaited her. They were a formidable group, seasoned veterans in the industry, and their expressions oscillated between curiosity and skepticism. She could practically feel their eyes sizing her up, judging her credibility as the new leader of this task force. Drawing in a deep breath, Sarah collected herself, reminding herself of Jonathan's reassuring words. It was her time to shine, and she believed in the path she had crafted for their future together. "Thank you all for being here," she began, trying to infuse confidence into her voice. "Today, I want to discuss a transformative approach to our governance model, one that includes everyone's insights and contributions. I believe our strength lies within our collective knowledge, and I hope to harness that." As she spoke, she noticed a few nods among the board members, encouraging her to press on. She detailed her vision of workshops aimed at exploring the intricacies of their current system. They would dissect bureaucratic challenges and discover ways to streamline communication and collaboration. Each person in the room had the power to influence change, she stressed. Imagine walking into a meeting space where ideas flow freely, where everyone feels their voice matters, she described, her enthusiasm growing. But as she elaborated on her proposal, a sharp voice cut through the room. It was Roger, a long-standing board member known for his unwavering focus on tradition. "And if these workshops end up being nothing more than a distraction?" he challenged, his brow furrowed. "Have you considered the risk that we'll lose focus on our core objectives?" The question hung in the air, a weight she felt bearing down on her shoulders. Sarah's heart raced. Did he see her as naive, someone out of touch with the company's needs? "I appreciate your concern, Roger," she replied, forcing her voice to remain steady. "But the way forward requires us to focus not only on our core objectives but also to adapt to evolving challenges. I believe these workshops will not be a distraction but a necessity." His gaze remained locked on her, unwavering. "You say they will foster collaboration, but what if they breed inconsistency? We might end up with a chaotic mix of ideas that stray from our mission." Her mind churned, grappling with how to defuse his challenge without losing her conviction. "Roger, we've been doing things the same way for so long. A little chaos could lead us to innovation. We can agree on fundamentals while also exploring how we can improve. Sarah felt a flicker of determination surge within her, amplifying her resolve. What I'm proposing isn't about abandoning our objectives, it's about embracing a dynamic approach. We can be both structured and innovative, she asserted, allowing a touch of heat to touch her tone. The room quieted, and she sensed a shift. A collective curiosity stirred among those present, but the moment was fleeting as another member chimed in. And what if these workshops flop? What's the backup plan? Carla asked, her expression skeptical yet intrigued. Sarah was met with a wave of doubt, enough to send a cold shiver coursing through her. What if it truly didn't work? What if all of this was a waste of time? She realized then that this was about more than just a professional proposal. It was about her as a leader, her ability to carry the weight of expectations. As she gathered her thoughts, a small but powerful realization took root. This task force was her opportunity to grow, not just lead. I'd like to propose that we implement a feedback loop throughout the process, she spoke boldly, a new strategic plan forming in her mind. Let us structure these workshops so that we can iterate on the insights we gather. We'll establish checkpoints to assess impact and adjust our approach accordingly. If something's not working, we'll pivot. Together. Her words hung in the air, a pledge of commitment and flexibility that felt like the lifeline she sought. The silence that followed felt electric, as if the tension in the room could be harnessed. It was clear she had stirred something profound within the hearts of the board. But doubt still flickered in the back of her mind. Had she made enough of an impact? Would they truly buy into this vision? Before she could ponder it further, the board members began to speak among themselves, their hushed tones creating an air of anticipation. Sarah stood, poised at the precipice of change, uncertain of their decision but ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. As the discussion shifted back to her with keen eyes awaiting her next words, Sarah realized she stood at a crossroads. The board's approval was still unresolved, and deep down, she felt an emerging urge to confront one critical element of her proposal, a hidden truth about her leadership that could alter their perceptions forever. With bated breath, she prepared to delve into her personal philosophy on leadership, one that ran deeper than governance models. Would her revelation wield the power to unlock their trust or create another division? The moment of truth loomed, and neither she nor the board could foresee the depths of its consequence. Before we proceed, there's something I need to share, Sarah began, feeling the weight of the room's attention shift toward her. She glanced at each board member, searching their expressions for receptivity, their skepticism mingled with curiosity. This was no longer just a business discussion. She had to confront a deeper layer of her identity as a leader. She cleared her throat. My background isn't as polished as many of yours. I didn't always inhabit this space of authority. There was a time when I faced my own struggles to be heard. The confession hung in the air, and she could almost hear the shifting expectations among her audience. For a brief moment, she considered retreating back to the safety of her proposal, but that instinct only fueled her drive to press deeper into vulnerability. My mother was a cleaning lady, she continued, her voice steady yet laced with emotion. She would often share her thoughts about the workplaces she cleaned, about the leaders she observed and how their decisions impacted the lives of the people beneath them. I listened and learned. Those conversations sparked a passion in me, a desire to create spaces where everyone felt valued, not just the ones at the top. This wasn't just personal history, it was a defining moment in her narrative, one that could resonate with the board members. She watched as their initial skepticism faded slightly, replaced with a flicker of understanding. I understand the reservations you might have about my vision, she said, cautiously yet firmly. But I believe my background provides me with a unique perspective on leadership. It's not just about authority but about listening to ideas from every level, from executives to support staff. That's where true innovation lies. Roger's expression softened, a slight crease of contemplation furrowing his brow. And how can we trust that your unconventional path will steer us toward the right place? His challenge caused her pulse to quicken. This was no longer just a verbal sparring match, it was about her credibility as a leader. She needed to offer something beyond her anecdotes. She had to map out a strategy grounded in her experiences, something actionable. Trust is built on transparency, Sarah responded, her voice rising slightly. I propose a pilot workshop that will focus on inclusivity, not just for ideas but for every member's genuine concerns. We'll gather input continuously. I'll hold myself accountable, and anyone can voice challenges along the way. As she spoke, she infused her vision with tangible actions, regular updates to the board, quarterly assessments, interviews with team members across all levels. It was a framework designed to foster trust and collaboration. The room buzzed with renewed energy. Members began to whisper among themselves, the dialogue evolving into discussions about her background and how it could lend authenticity to her leadership style. Those glimmers of connection ignited a volatile mix of hope and fear within her. Could she keep this momentum going? Would they embrace this yet untested model? Thoughts raced through her mind, doubts creeping in just as quickly as the excitement surged. She reflected on the kind of leader she aspired to be, not just one who made decisions but one who cultivated an environment of empowerment. As the discussion swirled, Sarah noticed Carla leaning in. What you mentioned about accountability resonates with me. But what if it fails? What if this feedback you're so keen on reveals something we're not ready to confront? Sarah felt the familiar sting of doubt jab at her, but she resolved to face it head-on. Then we will confront it, she said with fierce conviction. Transparency doesn't only nurture progress, it reveals the areas most in need of improvement. We are not here to pretend everything is perfect. This was her moment of shaping her path, a realization that sometimes the very elements that challenge us catalyze our most significant growth. As the board members continued their discussions, Sarah felt a thrill of empowerment course through her. She had dared to expose a part of herself that few leaders did, and it fueled her determination. Yet, the flickers of doubt persisted, whispering unsettling thoughts of rejection and failure. The conversation seemed to open like a flower before her, petals revealing opportunities but also risking stings from those very observations that might not align with the comfort of tradition. With the board's attention fully captured, Sarah steeled herself for their questions. She sensed that the next few moments could redefine everything, a beckoning towards change, or a rejection that might shake her core. As she took a deep breath, she wondered, would this be a turning point in her leadership journey, or had she merely exposed a vulnerability they couldn't accept? The tension stilled, and she readied herself, knowing that her next words could alter the trajectory of her future. The room fell silent, tension crackling like electricity in the air. Sarah could feel every gaze piercing through her, a mixture of scrutiny and curiosity. But rather than retreating, she leaned into the gravity of the moment. Leadership called not just for decisions but for the courage to embrace discomfort. Let us break it down, she said, her voice commanding but calm. What happens if this initiative reveals flaws in our organization? She scanned the room, seeking reactions, gauging willingness. I argue that it's a chance for rebirth. Each flaw is an opportunity to innovate, to strengthen our foundation. We can either hide behind a facade of perfection or confront what needs fixing. Roger, who had initially posed the challenge, spoke first. And how do we ensure that confronting these flaws doesn't breed resentment among staff? We could potentially uncover divisions that exist but are swept under the rug. His question sharpened her focus. This was not merely about unity but rather about the careful threading of a tapestry, where every voice mattered. That's precisely why I emphasize inclusivity, she affirmed. Rather than a top-down directive, this workshop will be participatory. It'll involve open dialogues, safe spaces for honesty. We need mechanisms that encourage constructive feedback, not blame. Behind her confidence lurked a shadow of uncertainty. But what if my approach fails? She thought, a too familiar voice whispering doubt. Still, she pushed the fear aside, unwilling to wilt in front of the very people who could either support her vision or shatter it. Carla interjected again, this time with a tone of support. I appreciate that you're willing to gather input, but timing is crucial. The market doesn't pause for us to reassess. How do we balance this commitment to accountability with the deadlines we already face? Here was the crux of her internal conflict. Can one truly be open while striving for immediate results? That's a fair point, Carla, she acknowledged, knowing full well that agility was key in their field. We can start small. Let us choose a team to pilot this first. We can observe how feedback is integrated and make mid-course corrections based on what we discover. This doesn't have to be an all-or-nothing approach. A murmur of agreement rippled through the group, but her internal dialogue continued. The specter of failure lingered in her thoughts, and while some members nodded, she sensed underlying apprehension in the air. Would they consider her proposals sincere or merely ambitious platitudes? Then came the moment when Gina, usually quiet, chimed in. One of the greatest challenges is how we respond to what we uncover. A commitment to action must follow our discussions. It's not enough to hear feedback, we need to act on it. Sarah felt the weight of Gina's insight settle heavily on her shoulders. She had indeed placed herself in a position of accountability. Absolutely, she replied, and I'll prepare to report back to all of you. Transparency means nothing without follow-through. After the meeting, the board members began to leave, but one remained: Roger. He approached, a thoughtful expression etched across his face. Sarah, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't skeptical at first, he admitted. But I can see the essence of what you want to achieve. Just remember, this is a radical shift for all of us. You need to be prepared to face pushback not just from the board but from the entire organization. He turned to leave, but his words hung in the air, a reminder of the storms yet to be weathered. She realized that while she had taken a significant step forward, the real challenge was ahead. With every conversation she navigated, Sarah felt herself shifting, evolving into the leader she envisioned. Yet, uncharted territory lay before her. How many would truly embrace this feedback-driven culture she longed to foster? And could she bear the weight of dissent should it arise? As doubts persisted in her mind, a revelation sparked a hidden capability buried under layers of experience. Perhaps she wouldn't only influence change but also uncover the potential in others. And while she prepared for the inevitable challenges, she understood that this metamorphosis would not be solely about her. It was about cultivating others' voices too. Stepping away from the table, Sarah contemplated her next move. What strategies would she employ to brace her colleagues for this shift? She pondered the notion of empowering them to contribute actively to the change process. Suddenly, a new idea flickered in her mind, igniting a wave of ambition. What if she designed a system where every employee could suggest improvements anonymously? With newfound determination, she resolved to capitalize on this momentum, not just steering her initiatives, but also nurturing her team's growth, fueling their collective potential. Yet as this draft of an exciting future began to unfold, another question hung above her like a sword poised to drop. Would the history of fear and complacency within the company dampen their enthusiasm, or could she truly ignite their spirits? Driven by this dual challenge ahead, she couldn't shake the sense of urgency. The path to leadership was a treacherous ascent, one fraught with both vulnerability and the promise of greatness. And now that she had entered this crucial phase of her journey, she prepared herself. What would the cost of her ambition be? And could she persevere, even when the truths might reveal more than she ever wished to see? In the days following her bold proposal, Sarah felt a simmering tide of transformation bloom within her. The feedback loop she initiated began taking root among her colleagues, planting the seeds of accountability and collaboration deep within the fabric of the organization. Slowly but surely, the board members became navigators of this shift, challenging traditional paradigms while embracing the fresh perspectives that their diverse voices offered. Each meeting unveiled an unexpected cascade of creativity, igniting discussions previously stifled by hierarchy. With every deliberate action, Sarah not only steered the task force but also redefined her own professional identity. She was no longer just a cleaning lady moonlighting as a leader, she had become the architect of change, establishing a culture where every opinion was valued. As her strategy unfolded, her colleagues even began volunteering their ideas during workshops, bringing forth concerns about outdated practices and proposing innovative solutions. One morning, she sat down with Jonathan to reflect on their progress. The palpable tension that once characterized their partnership had transformed into a dynamic of mutual respect and synergy. I can't believe how far we've come, he remarked, pride gleaming in his eyes. Sarah smiled, her confidence swelling. They were no longer just allies, they were visionaries united in a quest for meaningful change. Each voice truly matters, Jonathan, she said. This isn't just my project, it's our journey. The reciprocity of respect and ambition coursing through their partnership resounded in her words, revealing how Jonathan's belief in her had paved the way for her own self-acceptance, yet, the road was not without its bumps. As the task force delved deeper, they faced pushback from entrenched members who resented the shifting tide. Sarah braced herself for criticism, each challenge testing not just her capabilities but the very fabric of her character. The resolve she cultivated was met with barbed questions and cynicism. And how can a cleaning lady truly lead us into the future? One veteran member spat during a heated discussion. But rather than retreat into doubt, Sarah delved into her own narrative. My experiences have shaped my understanding of the importance of inclusion, she countered, noticing the shift in audience energy. Leadership is not a privilege granted by title, it's the courage to listen and adapt. This truth resonated louder than any diploma or title she could possess, swaying the atmosphere ever so slightly in her favor. Validation surged as the weeks rolled on, and a major breakthrough came when they presented their revitalized governance model to the entire organization. The board had invested in Sarah's vision, and she now stood before the employees, a team ready to embrace change. The feedback loop had evolved into a platform of empowerment, laying out actionable initiatives that thrummed with life. As she spoke, she could see the glimmers of recognition. Her colleagues were listening, truly engaging with the ideas they forged together. The energy in the room was electric. This was when Sarah recognized her transformation was complete. She spoke earnestly, "What we've accomplished isn't just a product of my work, it's the result of each one of us daring to contribute and challenging the status quo. This new direction reflects our collective identity." Applause erupted. Sarah wasn't just a spectator in her own life anymore, she had crossed a bridge into empowerment. Confidence radiated continually from her, no longer a timid woman wondering if her voice mattered. She had transformed into a recognized leader capable of spearheading initiatives and inspiring those around her. Recognition soon followed when the board unanimously appointed her to a permanent executive leadership position, a testament to her valuable insights and dedication to the organization's growth. The same colleagues who once viewed her through a lens of skepticism now stood beside her as partners in innovation. As Sarah settled into her new role, she felt a commitment to help others realize their potential, no longer just aiming for personal achievement, but driving collective success. In that moment of achievement, she too understood a profound truth of leadership. It wasn't merely about authority but about building others. Sarah's evolution solidified into her mission, fostering an organizational culture where everyone could flourish. Now was the time to contemplate the next frontier. With newfound opportunities ahead, Sarah stood ready, empowered to navigate the unknown and champion the myriad voices that collectively fueled the company's future. Her journey had transformed her identity fundamentally, proving that one's position does not define competence but rather the courage to speak and take action. This was not the conclusion of her narrative, but a transformative prologue to new heights. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for remarkable journeys like Sarah's. Comment your reactions and theories about this transformative ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see Sarah's incredible journey and learn what true leadership means. Don't wait even one more second to share. This is the moment to make your voice heard.